While I was writing the script for my video on rotation, there was a part in it where I called out a few Planeswalkers that were, well, about to rotate out. Of the 6 noteworthy ones for Standard, I gave a shout out to 2 in particular that had use in Commander. But then it really got me thinking, what other Planeswalkers are actually good in Commander? If you're not sure what I'm getting at, Planeswalkers have historically been considered the worst permanent in Commander, with the immense utility they've provided not really being offset by the fact that they often don't get to last a full turn cycle, because you generally have to defend from not 1, but 3 other players. This bad rep isn't helped either by dedicated Planeswalker decks, or Super Friends, as they're often called, being known for taking some of the longest, dirtliest turns, where the Super Friends player spends the first 5 minutes of their turn activating all their Planeswalker abilities, before spending the next 5 minutes proliferating, and then needing to resolve all the loyalty counter changes. They also tend to lean more on effects that slow the game down, such as effects like Propaganda and Ghostly Prison, and other stacks tools, which mitigate the attacks of other players. I want to focus today on instead Planeswalkers who don't need to be in a dedicated Planeswalker deck. And I want to break down some of the things you can look for when evaluating Planeswalkers when they inevitably come out alongside the next set. I want you to be able to ask yourself if you should include the next Glorp Shitto Planeswalker to your deck. As always, share your thoughts with me in the comments. This channel has been going pretty quick. It's been great, honestly, seeing the kind words and creative ideas you guys have been cooking. Let's start with the 2 Planeswalkers I mentioned in my video on rotation that kickstarted this whole process for me. Eternal Wanderer and Nissa, Ascendant Animus, were 2 of a whopping 10 Planeswalkers introduced in the same set, and have each managed to break the stereotype of Planeswalkers being unplayable in Commander. Starting with Nissa, she in my mind encapsulates the bare minimum a good Commander Planeswalker needs to offer: immense flexibility. All 3 of her modes are brilliant in Commander, and generally available from the jump. From making a seriously sizable blocker, to removing a Smothering Tithe or Soul Ring, to winning you the game with her Overrun ultimate. There are plenty of flexible cards in green that can perform the first 2 at the same time. I'm thinking of cards like Scrap Shooter, that can be cast for cheaper and answers those threats, which is why I actually need to emphasize that it's the final mode that brings this card together. In a deck with high forest counts, which even with all duels and tri-lands, which could easily have forest types, is not just locked to mono green, Nissa is a rare kind of win con that can also be played from behind, offering at minimum a 5 mana 5/5, or the ability to spot remove another game-ending threat while projecting being one herself. Part of the power of Archdruid's Charm, a comparable card, isn't that it's strictly cheaper to get any of the effects. Quite the opposite, actually. What makes it such a Commander powerhouse is its ability to offer value in all situations. This is one of the core tenets of what makes a good Planeswalker Commander too. That is, the immediate and flexible value it can find irregardless of if it sticks around until the next turn. Let's look at the Eternal Wanderer as another example. She, like Nissa, gets access to all her abilities from the jump, including a targeted board wipe, a token generator, with double strike by the way, and a blink, which aside from being used conventionally on your own creatures, can also be used to temporarily keep a threat away or outright remove a token. Eternal Wanderer ticks a lot of the same boxes that Nissa does. Instead of offering an immediate win con, however, she allows you a powerful comeback option. She's also the first Planeswalker we'll discuss that offers a passive ability, one of the key elements for powerful Planeswalkers nowadays. In this case, she prevents opponents from attacking her with more than 1 creature at a time, making her extraordinarily easy to protect with a single creature, primarily with the 2/2 double strikers she's able to churn out. Eternal Wanderer, in my mind, plays the closest in Commander to a traditional constructed Planeswalker, being the most likely of the bunch to actually get to survive a turn, and instead is realistically able to accrue continual value turn after turn. So for Planeswalkers to be good in Commander, we've established that they need to be among the most immediately impactful and flexible of their class. Our next Planeswalker offers the most flexible of all abilities: Card Draw. Liliana, Dreadhorde General, since her printing, has been considered one of the anomalies of Planeswalkers, being immediately useful in almost any black-based Commander deck. She offers one of the most universally powerful static abilities on a permanent, drawing you cards whenever a creature you control dies. While she can't ultimate immediately, both of her other abilities directly feed into the card draw plan that this card offers, while also offering removal that can be inflicted to yourself to draw additional cards while trimming the board down. She can also alternatively simply put up a blocker that can be tossed away for a card draw option too. The key to playing this Planeswalker successfully is all about the timing. She plays best in situations where you have an existing board, where she can effectively read, if you use her abilities correctly, draw 6 cards. Or can be played when your opponents each control only 1 to 2 creatures, where she can wipe the board and potentially draw you a card or two too. Both these scenarios are pretty trivial actually to see in your average Commander game, which is why the key will be to recognize when this is happening and bring her in for massive value. Though it happens rarely, her ultimate does generally win you the game, but I'd encourage you to view her purely as a win con through being a card draw engine rather than that ultimate. Now let's talk about one of the Planeswalker cards that's rapidly climbing up in usage since her printing earlier this year. Elspeth's Stormslayer offers players a new way to double any tokens they create in white. This effect is not strictly unique to her, as it mirrors Anointed Procession of the past, but she is the first card to offer this effect while immediately being able to produce tokens as well. This effectively ensures her +1 creates 2 1/1s, which in any Goad Wide deck can usually be buffed into powerhouses, even with Elspeth herself later. If that doesn't appeal to you, at the cost of no loyalty, she can give them all flying and +1/+1, making her not only a token enabler, but also a payoff. Then, if that isn't enough to top it all off, she can also use her third ability off the jump to remove a problematic creature that might threaten you. Elspeth is, in my mind, symbolic of a new design philosophy Wizards seem to be taking since All Will Be One, where Planeswalkers have appeared to all carry meaningful static abilities, which have helped push Planeswalkers beyond constructive formats. Take the next 2 Planeswalkers I want to cover for another example. Ral, Crackling Wit, and the recently printed Tezzeret, Cruel Captain. Each of these cards service different archetypes. Ral for Spellslinger, Tezzeret for artifacts. But they both carry a new type of text we're now seeing on Planeswalkers, the ability to increase their loyalty without using their abilities. And they're both capable of being played alongside other cards in their same archetype and immediately ulting in the same turn. With the very wide pool of cards available in the Commander format, this is a very realistic outcome, and both their ultimate abilities, particularly Ral's, offer a game-ending threat if reached. One other benefit of these new scaling types of Planeswalkers is the high loyalty total that they can easily reach. It also acts as an added level of survival for each of them. Curving out each of these on an early turn and getting their loyalty up quickly can make them quite hard to remove for Planeswalkers. Not to mention that both beyond their ultimate abilities also have very impactful powers. Ral draws you cards or makes a prowess creature, while Tezzeret can find you your Soul Ring or Moxen. So if they do get the removed, it's not like you didn't find any value. If you look on the Game Changers list, funny enough, you will find one Planeswalker, Naret, Parter of the Veils. This 3-mana menace is synonymous with a 2-card combo, so infamous, it actually caused her to be added to the Game Changer list. If a blue player has at least 6 mana, blindly drops Naret, you can bet the next card coming out of their hand will be Windfall. This nasty combo allows a player to replenish their own hand while reducing everyone else's down to just 1. Naret is interchangeable with other Game Changer, Notion Thief, and both are often run for redundancy in the decks that want to do this kind of combo. This combo is hands down one of the saltiest in the Commander format, so if you plan to try this, make sure you give your table a reasonable warning if you're packing this. Alongside Naret, War of the Spark, the set she came from, gave us a few other Planeswalkers that also see play primarily for the static ability they carry, including Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, for card draw in a Simic Stompy deck. Ashiok Dream Renderer acts as a hate piece for players who like to tutor, and Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord gives all creatures lifelink. While I'm touching on the topic of mean Planeswalkers, I also couldn't miss Oko Thief of Crowns and Dak Faden, who both provide particularly targeted value that usually results in some salt flying at the table. Oko, for his very infamous ability to turn another player's commander off by making them a 3/3 elk instead, and Dak Faden, who should basically just read ETB, steal a player's Soul Ring. Next, I want to talk about a particularly interesting Planeswalker and personal favorite of mine in Obnixalis the Adversary, a 3-mana Planeswalker who can be cast alongside a sacrifice to create a second copy of him on the battlefield at once. To synergize with this, his first 2 abilities are designed to be used in tandem with one another, with one copy creating a devil with the -2 ability, while the second one immediately activates the +1 to force every player to either lose 2 life or discard a card while you gain 2 life. If you can sacrifice a creature with 7 or more power, you can also immediately ult with Obnix to get a powerful Grizzlebrand effect, refueling your hand in exchange for some life. While the first 2 abilities may seem insignificant compared to other Planeswalkers we've discussed so far, I can't emphasize enough its ability to double dip with 2 copies of a Planeswalker that really pushes this card. Another particularly out there Planeswalker for Commander is Grist, Hungertide, a Planeswalker that specializes in insects and self-mill. The thing that makes Grist particularly out there is her static ability that makes her a 1/1 creature while she isn't in play. This allows her not only to be played as your commander, but also allows for some interesting interactions with cards that care about creatures. This can range from being able to play her into the battlefield with effects like Chord of Calling or Collected Company, to even cards like Agatha's Soul Cauldron, which can exile her from a graveyard to give all creatures with counters on them her Planeswalker abilities. I should, however, mention, because these creatures will start with 0 loyalty, you'll only be able to use her +1, but regardless, this is a pretty unique interaction. Tefairy is one of the more well-known Magic characters and happens to have 2 Planeswalker cards that may have use in Commander. The first is Tefairy, Master of Time, which speaks for itself, being able to activate an ability every single turn, allowing us to easily ramp to its powerful ultimate ability unconventionally fast. In addition, its -3 ability is capable of defending itself too, from would-be threats. The other Tefairy is one of the more recent ones and is, in my opinion, slept on by the Commander community. If you're a fan of drawing cards, you may want to look to include Tefairy Temporal Pilgrim, whose loyalty is able to increase every time you draw a card. This can very quickly become absurd in many blue decks, which already include staples like Rhystic Study and Windfall. The ultimate on this incarnation is also powerful, being a player-specific Cyclonic Rift, forcing them to remove all their non-land permanents from the board. Similar to Ral and Tezzeret from before, this Tefairy is also deceptively tanky, and to top it all off, is capable of producing tokens, which also grow as you draw cards. While we're in blue, one more Planeswalker you'll often see in card draw heavy decks is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, namely for his ability to win you the game on the spot if you have milled yourself out. Expect to see him in any blue deck, trying to draw all of its cards as the win con, alongside Thassa's Oracle and Laboratory Maniac. Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, sees play as an artifact support piece, able to churn out artifacts as you sling spells. These servos she makes can often be useful chump blockers too, to keep her around between turns. Finally, Spellslinger decks looking for a more combo-orientated finish often look to cards like Ral, Storm Conduit, and Professor Onyx. Both these cards have the ability to go infinite with spell copy effects like Reverberate to get infinite spell triggers, which with cards like Guttersnipe or Professor Onyx herself, courtesy of her Magecraft ability, will end the game outright and make a fantastic finisher. So it turns out, from doing the research to make this video, there are a considerable number of powerful Planeswalkers, and while I won't go out and claim the idea that they are weaker in Commander isn't true, there are undoubtedly several that have a home in the format. As always, if you enjoy the content I make, let me know in the comments and what you'd like to see next. Until then, see you in the next one. Cheers.